How nice is Jack Campbell? Just a great.
Seems to be so nice. He gives to the other team.
Yeah, he literally handed Ottawa 2 goals because he felt like the game wasn't close enough. So good guy Jack Campbell goes out there and he goes, you know what, Ottawa, let's have fun, and just passes them. He had 2 assists last night. Great game. I really respect him for that. Thank you, Jack Campbell, for being such a good person. Maybe don't do that again. But Jack Campbell ended up gutting out a win in that one. Leafs look meh. They were okay. They weren't great, but they always play Ottawa like shit, so it's not that big a deal. Austin Matthews with the gorgeous move on, I want to say it was Thomas Chabot in the overtime, and ended up setting up a Justin Hall goal of all people. Good game from the Leafs. I don't have much to say on it. I just kind of wanted to bring up Jack Campbell in general because he's such a sweetheart, and I really like Jack Campbell, and I just really appreciate that he did that for the Ottawa Senators.
Just really makes you cringe, man, when they're like rushing in the zone and the goalie comes out
like,
hey, goalies, I want you guys to understand there's a reason why they restricted the zone that you can go, because they really do not want you to go out there, okay? No. You have the trapezoid. Tell me another. Yeah.
Like, I love Jack Campbell. I think he's a great goalie. But when he picked up that puck to skate it behind the net, I'm like, where are you going? Just get rid of it.
You get caught because all of a sudden you realize I'm not as open as I thought I was. No. I have this weird box around me. I have this stick that really doesn't make sense for passing.
You could see the thought process the entire time, too, because he has the puck, like, okay, I'm going to play it back to the power play guys. But then you see the Ottawa guy coming. I don't know who it was. It wasn't Connor Brown at first. But either way, he sees the guy coming.
I think it was Tierney.
Is it? So he sees Tierney coming, he goes, oh, shit, he's probably going to beat my guy there. So he turns, it was Nylander. So he turns around to go behind the net, thinking, like, he can just make a play behind there and, like, just undress Tierney or something. So he goes back there. Obviously, that's not going to work, and he coughs it up off the guy's leg right to Connor Brown. There's no better play for him. And, yeah, tough goal. Not the best look. Thankfully, he was good enough outside of that.
I said Connor Brown should be a Leaf. He's not quite there, Jack Campbell.
We haven't traded for him yet.
Yeah, exactly. He will be soon, and eventually he'll just turn that puck around and be gone. It'll be a viable option.
In a few weeks. In a few weeks when Connor Brown's a Leaf, that was a great pass. But as of today, it wasn't a great pass.
When he wears the red, yeah. But you know what? Like you said, man, there are games that you're glad that you win because you look back at the schedule and it's like, all right, 3-2, you win it. You don't really remember how, but you remember that you won it.
You don't really Jack Campbell won it. Yeah, you don't really care that you gave up a point to Ottawa because that's not going to hurt you in the standings. They're not catching you. So giving up that loser point to Ottawa is like, whatever. We got our 2 points no matter how we did it. It's fine. Just hopefully they won't make those mistakes again. It's whatever. Now, Pierre Dorion. Well, I don't know. If you're listening and you didn't see it, try and find it because it's really funny. Because the Sens lose that game in overtime. And Pierre Dorion gets so angry at the fact they lost that he grabs his coffee that's sitting there and literally just throws it into the suite behind him. Now, I would like to know, did Pierre Dorion go into that game expecting to beat the Leafs?
I think if you go to overtime, you're expected to win. You know, they're just expecting.
But as the Sens, if you're matching up as the Ottawa Senators with 1 goal scorer against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who has 37 goal scorers, in overtime in a 3-on-3 situation, you think you're going to win?
He is an absolutely frustrated being. Oh my God. Especially in overtime. And that coffee was cold and bitter.
That's what it was. He wasn't even watching the game. He took a sip of that coffee and said, good Lord, this tastes like shit, and threw it because he didn't like the taste of it. He's not a big Dunkin' Donuts guy.
He knows in those booths there's no microwave, so he hucked it. He said, that's done.
Pick this
banking
up,
in. Yeah, he said banking in and just missed the garbage.
He definitely called bank when he threw it.
Yeah. So, no,
I got such a laugh out of that. Like, dude, like, how do you get that angry losing to the Leafs in overtime? Like, you got a point out of a game you should never get a point out of.
You want to show emotion, I guess, but like, aren't you trying to be bad right now? Like, is the point not to be as bad as you can be, especially to get a higher pick to make sure that they are more of a bona fide, asset to your team?
I think he just genuinely hates losing to the Leafs. Like, I know he doesn't like the Leafs, and he's come out and like been vocal about that. And I think that was just hatred of the fact that this team just beat us again.
But if he's been vocal about that, how is that not tampering in some way?
But it's
Saying
not
that
really like he kind of just straight up says, like, you know what? He mentioned before he didn't want to trade Erik Karlsson to the Leafs because of like they're in the division and stuff like that. Like
I get it to say that because they're in the division, but to say that you write out hate them.
I don't know if he write out hate them, but he plays into the rivalry. So I think what that coffee throw showed me was that we are not getting Connor Brown because he's just so angry losing to the Leafs. Now, there's no way he's going to do us a favor and give us somebody. I don't.
You know what that throw showed me? Do not sit behind him in any sort of playoff game.
When we're allowed back in the building, do not go near Pierre Dorian if they lose.
Did he invite you into the booth?
No, I'm good. I'll sit down here. Thank you.
Yeah, next year, 2 years, 3 years. Can you imagine when he thinks that he has a team together?
Mm-hmm.
Don't give that man coffee, especially hot.
No.
Make sure that thing is cold.
If you're one of his AGMs and you're in the booth, you're like, here, hold on. Let's just get this out of here. Last couple minutes of the game, you're like pulling drinks away from him.
Everybody still has the face shields on. They're like, they don't have to do that anymore. No, trust me, watch.
They got riot shields standing behind Pierre Dorian. It was kind of interesting, actually, because Kyle Dubas was at that Calgary-Ottawa game the night before, which, first of all, I didn't think was allowed. Like, it's weird that they let him in the building, but he was there watching that game.
But you're in the division, so I guess as long as you can kind of make it over, then
maybe. I thought it was a strange thing. Like, if that's the case, if I'm a Leaf and I want to go watch the Sens game the night before, can I go do that? Like,
I guess if you're not playing, you can get the time over there.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm thinking. Like, if you just enjoy hockey that much and you just want to watch a game, or
I don't know who would, to be honest with you.
Well, like if you're like Brady Tkachuk and you're in Calgary the night before your game, and
you want to go see your brother play for sure.
Like, is that a thing? Like, are you allowed to do that?
Like, maybe.
I thought it was interesting, but obviously it sparked a lot of rumors about like Kyle being there. Not rumors, but like just like a lot of talk about like, hey, look, Kyle's at the Ottawa Calgary game. Who's he looking at?
When right, really, but you know that. But he kind of sees the same thing that we've been saying, right? Like he wants to move past this. They're going to have to quarantine and not play for us, and get to a point where they can just come in and be an asset to the team, and they can be contributing. You know, and which better way to do that than in our division? And it's going to be tough for sure. But you know that this year, I think if a first round pick walks out of the door, you're not like, oh man, like that was ridiculous, because we have a chance to make it pretty far here.
Yep.
As well as you don't know what you're going to get past top 4, let's say 3.
Like, Steve Dangle had a really good. He had a really good tweet. He's just like, because we'll get to it later, but Montreal made a trade and they acquired 2 draft picks in this draft. And he goes, basically, they just acquired 2 darts for the dartboard that is this draft, and you're just going to throw them somewhere and hope you hit.
The Sabres did.
And it's kind of
the Sabres got the picks, right?
Or sorry, the Sabres got the picks for what do you call it, Staal. You're just throwing them at the dartboard, and maybe you hit something good, maybe not. Who knows? I'm like, that's a really good way to put it, because like you really don't know what this draft class can be outside of like, I think the top 3 to 5 guys you kind of know we're going to be in the top 3 to 5, but outside of that you have no idea who could be a steal and who could be this and that, unless they're coming from Europe, I guess. But you did bring up an interesting point too that we've been talking about and kind of put our last podcast out of date. Canada just officially today passed the law that any NHL player that's traded from the States to Canada no longer has to quarantine for 14 days, but it's been cut down to 7 now. So that's huge in terms of games played for the Leafs, because now you're less games without them, and they get to play more games before the playoffs with you. I think Montreal kind of jumped that gun, thinking maybe that's not going to happen, and they went out and got Eric Staal today for a 3rd and a 5th rounder. Thinking maybe they were thinking, you know what, this Canada thing might not go through, so they're going to jump the gun so he doesn't have to miss as much time. Now it's huge for them because he's going to play next week. So they get 7 days.
Cost them anything right now.
No. And it's weird because all the rumors I'd heard said Eric Staal wasn't interested in coming to Canada. He has a no trade clause, and apparently he wasn't willing to waive it to go to Canada, but all of a sudden he's ready to go to Montreal.
I mean, there was also a lot of talk that Taylor Hall wanted to re-sign in Buffalo, and now I think that's completely out the window. You know what I mean? Like he
openly said, "No, I'm ready to go if they want to trade me."
Yeah, like they have 6 wins. You know, that's real demoralizing, especially Eric Staal looking at his career, thinking, "Where was my best opportunity to get this get this final championship if I'm going to get one,
And you chose Montreal.
You know what, though? If some people say that that's the easiest route to it, know, out of all teams to go to, if he's kind of taking the easiest route there, then this could be it in some people's eyes.
Any above average player that's currently sitting on a team that's lost 16 games in a row should probably be, you know what, you want to trade me? Here's my team. Here's my list of 30 teams that I'm willing to go to. Because there's not one worse than the team you're on. And if you have a no trade clause right now, you're going, here's my list of 30. Find one, please. Like, that's not a place you want to be right now for any reason. The team's not good. The city sucks. You're going to lose Eichel at some point. He doesn't want to be there. There's no reason for you to be in Buffalo. So Eric Staal took that whole I don't want to go to Canada thing and said, you know what? Canada's better than this. And took off for it. Because good for him. Smart move. And he probably
I don't want to lose. Yeah, I don't want to lose as much as I don't want to go to Canada,
Same with Jonas Johansson that went to Colorado. Pretty sure he was on the flight before they even finished the phone call. He was already down in Colorado playing a game by the time they hung up on the "you've been traded" call. So, respect it. Good for those two. So happy they're out of there. Obviously, that still leaves Taylor Hall in Buffalo. We kind of touched on him last week. I'm interested to see if this kind of opens up a little bit more for the Leafs because now Montreal's not. I would assume Montreal's out of the market now. Whether they were or not before, who knows?
Do you think a trade like this though pressures a team maybe like Edmonton to go out and pursue a Taylor Hall, and say to Buffalo like, look, you can take some of the cap hit if we can't afford it, but if we can, it's just a 1-year deal.
Yeah, well, they took 50% of Staal's, right? So
right,
so they're willing to retain.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it just says like, if Montreal's going to pony up and, Calgary's been on a run since changing coaches.
They were.
Back-to-back
losses, back-to-back bad losses to Ottawa. Kind of says no on that one to me.
That sucks a bit for sure, but, Ottawa somehow sneaks out some wins.
They win against teams.
They almost did, yeah. They almost did, right? They're competitive for sure. So, and, Vancouver as well, always there.
It's a lot tighter.
Always gonna say those, yeah.
I think you're right. I think this puts a little bit of pressure on Edmonton to be like, you know what? These teams are right behind us and they're making moves. I don't know if Taylor Hall's the guy they go after. It could be, I think. I don't know if he'd waive his – does he have a no-trade clause?
But this race is no way over, and Edmonton has kind of shown to me in no way, shape, or form are they willing to assess from the net out first. They're going to go from the front.
They're not doing too well.
No, absolutely. And if they want some depth, then what better way to bring in a guy like Taylor Hall, who's played a bit with Nuge, especially if they're going to keep Draisaitl and McDavid together.
Yep.
And if you have the room, the money to do so, then
why not? Right?
Yeah,
I get it.
There's always money that can be traded back and forth, especially for a guy like Taylor Hall. So
you're willing to give up some pieces for Taylor Hall. Now the rumor was they want a first-round pick for Taylor Hall. I think it might be a little bit much to give up for a rental, but it's something I'd be willing to do.
This year, what's the first-round pick this year?
Especially if you're the Leafs.
What is the first-round pick, though? Is their first-round pick this year or first-round pick next year? Because
it's way different, right?
One of them for me, I'm in. I'm in for a guy like Taylor Hall, especially if he's going to bring the same attitude that you've seen before, right? He's shown that he can be a top player in the league, whether it was fluke or not. He's shown that he's got some talent, He
can play with your big boys. And if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs right now and you have the opportunity to get Taylor Hall for this year's first-round pick, obviously there's probably more to that deal, but I mean, I think you're definitely listening. You would have to get somebody else in the deal to try and take some salary off, and you'd lose a little bit more. But I think the Leafs should definitely be interested in it and calling through. I think Dubas knows what he's doing. He's probably doing that. It would be an interesting move to see him come here. I'm not opposed. I'm not huge on the guy. I'm not giving up much more than that first round pick. But if that's all it costs, I'd take the risk. Because this is a year you want to do well. You have a really good chance to make it to the semis this year.
They almost don't need to do anything either, though. The team seems to be clicking when they're getting healthier, right?
Yeah.
They have. I think, man, watching Galchenyuk come in there, he's getting some
looks great.
Some looks with the puck, and he moves it a lot better than any of the players they lost on the waiver wire, right? He fits in a little bit better just with the speed and with his offensive upside.
Yeah.
And that team is is working things out. I know that they're not as deep as they once were at the beginning of the season, which kind of sucks, but that's pretty well expected.
Yeah.
Right now, right?
Yeah, I think Toronto kind of had like a self addition, almost like when you brought back Wayne Simmons too. Like when he came off the injury, like that obviously deepens your lineup. And then, like you mentioned, the Gauch signing is out there. Like they've made their moves, and they don't really need to make that deadline move. I don't think it would help. I think it pushes you to another level depending on who you give up. But it's not something you need to do.
I think another, if you're going to assess something, then defense really is where it comes into question, right? Because that's where I think you're going to be the least healthy. Like when you get to the postseason and you start to worry about injuries and where you need more players rested, like defense is going to be bruised. Defense, you're
not that deep behind your six guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Once you got rid of Mikko Lehtinen, like your next guy up is Sandin, who's hurt right now. And even Rasmus Sandin, I love the kid, but he's not battle-tested to be playing playoff rounds that matter if someone goes down. And then behind that, you're looking at Martin Marincin again. And if you go into a series with Martin Marincin at any part of your lineup, you're losing. And it's just the way.
So I think that's really what you need to assess, right? The scoring's there. The ability to stop the scoring isn't always there, right? We've kind of seen a trend where if they let in, 3+ goals early, the game's pretty well out of hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
If they're not able to get a lead, or if they let that lead slip, like, if they let that goal, that go to 3-1, like it's game over for them for some reason.
Especially in the playoffs, right?
Yeah. And you don't want to see that. So
no. Back on Montreal, we didn't talk about it yet. I think it happened like minutes after the last podcast we did. But a bunch of members of that team tested positive for COVID, and it's the first team in Canada to get tested positive. So congratulations, Montreal, on being first in something in Canada. Well done. Brutal. Fucking clowns.
That's about right. It's about right.
Yeah. Jesperi Kotkaniemi was one of the names on the list, too. It's like, you went from being this guy that's going to turn around the franchise to being the guy that suspends the franchise. 14 days. Good job, buddy. Oh. God.
It's tough for sure. But you know what, man? Like, I don't know if you listened to Fred VanVleet when he got it.
And it's hell.
Yeah, he's like, dude, I don't even know where it came from.
I obviously feel bad for Kotkaniemi. The kid doesn't deserve it. And it's not. I don't wish this upon anyone. I've heard it's a rough time for some people. So I obviously don't wish this upon anyone, but I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, that's funny that they and they postponed those games too, which I was kind of surprised at. I feel like this should be more of a loss situation. Like that goes on your.
Yeah, I think it's a story about your luck. If you can't put a team on the ice right now, like I think the delay of that first game was fine because you want to see if anyone has it on the team and figure it out. But once you know who has it and everyone else tested negative, you're like, all right, cool. If you can't play tomorrow night, it's an L. Pull up your guys that you can.
Yeah, do you not have a tax squad for a reason?
Yeah.
Do you not have,
Exactly. Like these guys aren't allowed to be near each other, so I mean, you should have enough healthy guys.
Yeah, and if you can't play that game with that many guys, then you need to have a bigger taxi squad. But that needs to be the case. Then you say, you're right. Taxi squad, there's not enough, then make it bigger. If that's going to be your answer, then you need to come up with a solution.
Yeah, for sure. Like you didn't really notice it as much with the American teams because I don't know, it just didn't really follow it as much. But now that you're looking at it here, it's like, why couldn't you put a team on the ice? I get it wouldn't be a great team that goes on the ice, but there's no reason why you couldn't have found guys in your taxi squad to fill in those 3 or 4 slots.
How many teams have to play with emergency goalies at points where it's
the Rangers didn't have a single coach the one game, and they still had to go out there and play. So like it's different that you can't put that many guys in there. Even if you have to play down a man, it's something that you have to deal with. Like there's laws in place for your guys for this contract or contact tracing for a reason. So if your guys get it and they're not listening to the rules that are set in place, it's on them and it's on the team. So there should be you should have to play regardless, unless it's something ridiculous like 24 guys are out, which I think that's wicked fines. But I don't see a reason why they couldn't play those games. I think you're right, especially in the next ones. Like they're suspended until Sunday, so they were supposed to play yesterday and tomorrow, I think, too. And they're not going through with those games. That makes no sense to me. You have time to get guys before Saturday. But whatever. Other NHL news. This one was an interesting conversation, and this is going to be the first one that you and I disagree with in a long time because we haven't really had an actual battle in a while. Tim Peel. You probably heard the story already, but Tim Peel.
Oh, you're already picking sides.
Tim Peel. I like Tim Peel. Tim Peel, not a great ref, was reffing the Detroit and Nashville game. And he got caught on a hot mic saying it wasn't after calling a trip on, I want to say it was Arvidsson. Don't quote me. He goes, it wasn't much, but I wanted to get a fucking penalty against Nashville early in that, and then the mic cuts out. Scumbag move. I don't like it. But he was then, the NHL was investigating it, and they came to the conclusion that he will never ref another NHL game again in his career. But his career was only supposed to last a month. So realistically, this is a month-long suspension, but it looks like they fired him because they suspended him for a month, and in a month he's going to be retiring anyways. So looks way worse than it is. Like, it looks like, oh my God, he said this one thing and the NHL fired him. But like, they didn't. They gave him a month-long suspension, then he's going to retire. This is not a good referee. He's never been a good referee. Nobody likes him in the league. He takes all sorts of shit, and he's been a part of a lot of really bad calls. So it's not a big blemish in the NHL to be letting go of this guy for a month because he said something ridiculously stupid on mics.
I just really don't see the point. It's not anything that we don't know. You know, when we watch games, we know that there are certain players and certain aspects
moments
of the game won't get called. Yeah, exactly, right? We've seen it in other sports where, your superstars are not going to be out of this game. Your superstars will be playing because that's what the fans pay to see.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're there to watch. You're there to watch the first.
No, I get that. It's the whole game management thing from refs that I think is absolutely ridiculous.
This is what we hear, though. This is what the NHL always hears this. You hear those sound bites on YouTube. You know what you're not hearing? That clip. So all they're doing is just, they slipped up because we heard it, and now it's public. So what we're going to do is give you a ginormous slap on your wrist and say, hey, go have an early month off.
Yeah.
You're not going to get paid, but I'm sure you've got some savings. And then in a month, you're going to retire with a full pension. Yeah. And we'll see you later. And you're right off into the...
This is not that big of a deal to this referee. No, I don't think he cares. He's ready to be done.
I just don't think that they should have done anything at all because it was like you slapped him hard on the wrist and whatever. This
is where I agree with you, is that they suspending him doesn't really do anything because you never really mentioned the fact that referees shouldn't be doing this. There's no reason for a ref to go out there and play the game the way he wants it to play out. Like, you shouldn't be going out there going, okay, we've given Toronto too many penalties. Let's give Ottawa a couple here just to try and even out the game, Let's make it fair. That's not your job.
The biggest thing comes with betting, I guess. When you go to bet in games and you find out that the refs are now kind of tampering it or persuading it one way or the other, you can kind of think, okay, well, am I going to win this realistically now that the refs have
no idea? No idea.
Right. But
if you're a guy... Sorry, go ahead.
There was an NBA ref who came out and said, look, these are the rules that we were taught. This is what, the code we live by.
Yeah.
And everybody just went, that's a really cool book. All right, let's go watch some games. And let's watch it happen.
Those were two very different times in life. I mentioned this to you earlier. We are in a social media age now where, you can't do shit. As just anyone in you can't do a damn thing. So I don't disagree with it sometimes, but, if that came out today in 2021, there would have been an uproar about it. But because it happened where it was just got brushed under the rug and never really heard about it again, it wasn't as big of a deal. Now, for if Tim Peel does this 10 years ago, you probably never hear about it because it doesn't blow up on Twitter, it doesn't blow up on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, and the fans aren't talking about it, so the NHL doesn't have to make a big stink about it. It happens in the broadcast, and someone go, hey, did you hear the broadcast last week when the ref got caught saying this? And that's the only thing that ever happens is if you were watching that game, you heard it, but that's it. But now, because we have the technology, people hear it and I think fans are just fed up of this shit. Like, there's no reason a game should be about a ref at any point in time. If you go out there and do your job and call penalties when they're supposed to happen, nobody is going to complain about your work. It's when you start making ticky-tack calls to try and even it up, like he fully admitted in this Nashville game, that's when it becomes an issue. And I think that's where you're right, where the NHL didn't actually address that. They just said, you know what, we're letting you go. Sorry. They're not like, hey, let's not do this. They're just like, we're going to fire you.
Yeah, not even fire. We're just going to give you a vacation.
It's a suspension.
Unpaid vacation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Take a month off.
The most Canadian thing I think you can do.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm really sorry, but
this happened to you
for the last month, but go retire. It's okay. You know, it's kind of the same way with Don Cherry. It was like when Don Cherry said what he said, you were just like, look, that was bad. We're just gonna say, hey,
we're gonna move on.
We're
gonna move on from the relationship.
A podcast. We're not gonna stop you from actually podcasting yourself and saying your opinion. By all means, we're just not gonna televise this and support this with our logo. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, but the biggest
it's funny. So go ahead. Sorry.
Was Matt Duchene's comments, okay? Because now Matt Duchene.
I didn't know this until today. I just found this when I was looking it up.
Yeah. Now, Matt Duchene, in what world is it possible that you were going to blame the refs for missing the playoffs being a point out in a game where you have 20 games left or
He's got a point.
On a power play that they didn't even score on.
No, I know, but I see his point. So if you didn't see his quote, I don't have that part of the quote, but the ref came up and he says he told our bench that. So, I mean, really bizarre. I just think it can't happen, which that part I agree with. But then he goes on to say, I don't have the direct quote, but in paraphrasing, he says, like, what if this is a power play and they score on it and we end up losing the game by 1 and then we end up missing the playoffs by 1 point? I'm like, I get that. It's not going to happen. I don't think Nashville's good enough. But, like, he's got a point there.
You've done something wrong for the next 20 games then, my man, if you miss out by a point. You can't go back that far and say, hey, it's because this ref made this call and they didn't.
But he's got it. Like, it makes sense in the fact that if a ref's going to directly impact a game, it has playoff implications, realistically. But I see what he's saying there. I think it's a stretch.
We leave this game up to human choice. And this is absolutely, I think I heard it today. This is the fastest game that is played, okay? Back to back. Because NBA sets up a lot of plays. Mm-hmm. They run a lot of things, and the refs are able to see a lot of things, right?
Yep.
Football, oh my God, takes even longer. Right?
The slowest game on the planet. Don't give me baseball. Football's the slowest game on the planet.
These guys are on skates. They're flying back and forth. You were asking guys to make decisions in positions that they cannot really see. If you truly wanted a perfect game, you would take the refs off the ice. You would have maybe the linesman or one to drop the puck, and everything else would be done from above. If there's a penalty, they would see it. If there was an offside, they would see it. You know why? Because the computers always see it.
Yeah.
There's definitely a way for something to go.
You can't tell me we can track how fast players are in the second and how long they've been on the ice and a bunch of this stuff, but you can't tell me if he's passed this blue line before the puck has.
I can get a blue line to follow McDavid from the second he hits the ice to the second the puck goes in the net. You're telling me I can't figure out if he was offside or not? Like this
before the puck, we have the technology. Just use it. Stop leaving things up to human error. Stop letting refs decide things like that.
If that's going to be your case, exactly. But you know what, though? We leave it to each other, right? We trust in refs. We train them. They go through the same process that NHL players do to get where they are, right? There's constantly tryout after tryout after tryout. You don't just all of a sudden wake up and say, I'm ready to be an NHL ref. No. You go through years.
It's a long process. Yes. Now, I am very here for leagues almost showing up, umpires and refs and stuff like that, when they do a terrible job. I think if you miss something blatantly obvious or you call something that didn't exist and that happens, I don't think you should be fired or suspended or any of that. But leagues should absolutely be taking accountability for the brutal actions by their officials, and the officials should face some sort of repercussion for it.
Ottawa had 6 men on the ice against the Leafs.
Nothing. League said nothing about these guys, right?
Intermission, they called them out left, right, and center.
The intermission did, because that's their job. But the league said nothing. is my thing. It's like the league should be like, hey, that's bad. We saw the call. So-and-so has been fined $500. Even something stupid like that, right? You don't even have to fine them. Just tell everybody you fined them.
Honestly, fine them. Absolutely. It goes into the league fund. It helps the league, you know?
Yeah. Then you'll do a better job as a ref because I'm not calling that bullshit penalty because I'm going to get fined for it. If you do your job the way you should, you're never going to get fined. Plain and simple.
Count the fucking guys on the ice. Yeah. You know, 12 seconds is a long time, especially in their own end, to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's
you're
probably
sitting there
6.
Going, wow, Ottawa's really dominating right now. Wow, there's a lot of them out there, eh?
Nobody. Out of 4 guys, nobody realized that there was 2 more than them in red jerseys.
I'm counting more than 5. Did they pull the goalie? What a strange time for that. Yeah, no, I just think there needs to be a little bit of accountability from the officials. And I'm really here for the leagues doing stuff like that. Maybe not firing them, but some sort of accountability would be nice.
No.
Do you have anything else in the NHL?
No, man. That's I think we're pretty well.
Many other storylines. Seems really slow right now.
I mean,
because the Leafs are done.
Blackhawks are humming around, which is always lovely. We just stay where we are because Patrick Kane. I'll take it.
Sure.
You know, it goes McDavid, Draisaitl, Kane, which is nice.
It's cool. It's pretty cool. He's still up there. It's great. Sticking in hockey, the NWHL is back. And it's done already for the Toronto Six. Rep them. They had their semifinal. I find it wild that they just stepped right into the semifinal game. No exhibition games, no nothing. But the Toronto Six played today at 5 o'clock for their semifinal game, and they looked great for 16 minutes of the first period. And then they had 2 instant goals from Boston, and just turned into 2-0 game. They scored a late one in the first, make it 2-1, and then Boston just said no more of that. And just like every other Boston and Toronto matchup in playoff history, Boston came away with a win, and it was a decided win as a 6-2 final. Yep. What is it with Toronto teams not being able to beat Boston in the playoffs?
I don't know, man. Shots were 25-25 too. So in the first period,
they looked great. The Six were great. They looked so good for the most of the game.
Yeah. Weren't even penalized too much either, you know, just the one. And so I don't really understand, you know, I guess I'm gonna have to go with goaltending, you know. It's unfortunate to see for sure because it is just one game, you know. This is I think what the NHL really avoids.
Yeah.
Right, with their one game elimination. Like football has it and you see it. You know, March Madness has it. And it brings a certain excitement that you're just like, dude, anything is possible within that one game. Absolutely anything. Whereas NHL and NBA and MLB we want to see a series go.
I would like to see the better team win.
Right. I want to see you guys match up against each other, whether for 5 games, 7 games, even sometimes 3 games if we need to throw a quick series in there. But
I think these should have been 3-game series. This is way too quick to just hey, we're back. Hey, we're gone. Thanks for watching. Just like that.
Series, you could do some damage.
Yeah.
You know, you can still
if you lose 2 straight, it still sucks. But you know what? At least you had a chance, and you didn't just have a bad game and get out of the tournament. This is the number 1 seed coming into the thing was the Toronto Six, and they got slapped. It wasn't even close. They were great for a period and then just fell apart for the middle section and never got it back. This hurts losing to Boston again because it's the Leafs can't do it. The Raptors couldn't do it against Boston. Now the Six can't do it against Boston. I can't wait until we get into the wild card game as the Blue Jays, and somehow it's against Boston, and Boston wins that one too. Because you know it's going to happen, something like that. It's just not a thing here in this city that we can beat Boston in the playoffs. Shout out to those girls. They tried their best. They came in their inaugural season and finished first in the weird little bubble thing they had, despite all the difficult situations that they got put in. They ended up as the 1 seed, and they left it all on the line and just didn't have it tonight. It happens. Fun season.
It's a tough season. You know, yeah, absolutely. As long as you take something away and move forward as a team, right?
Yep.
And come back next year, you know, we'll still be here rooting.
Yep. You got the merch now? It came in just before playoffs, so we're good.
Yeah. I still got to get mine.
Yeah, my ears sitting in my house. We'll get it. We'll get you there just in time for next year when they come back.
Maybe that's
and
what
they
it was.
actually
I
come back.
just didn't have mine,
No,
That's where those four.
You're the reason they lost. That's what we're gonna go with.
I apologize, ladies. I apologize.
Yeah, there's another game going on right now. Not as interesting because it's not the 6. So I'm just disappointed. I'll just sit here in my disappointment, and we'll figure out the score of that one later.
I think that game's over. No,
is it over? I guess it is 10:40 now. Yeah, you're right.
7-0.
Was it actually?
That's the score. That's a box score I have here. I don't know.
That hurts.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's in the 3rd right now. Actually.
Oh, it's still on. Okay.
7-0.
Yikes. So I believe their final game is the 28th. If anyone's interested, it's on Twitch. If you're in the States, if somehow we have United States listeners, I think it's on NBC. I'm not American, so I don't really know, but I remember seeing something about it being on NBC. So hey, go support it. It's cool. It's fun to watch. It's good hockey. It was great watching the first period of that 6th game because I felt like we had a chance. But then I was just disappointed after that. And
you were fully relieved.
Yeah. Oh well.
Like any Toronto supporter,
Yeah. Yeah. I had so much belief in my Toronto team, and like always, to just break my heart. I ended up turning that game off to watch the Blue Jays today because they were down 6-1. Like the 6 were down 6-1. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just watch the Jays game. They're playing a nice spring training game. Vlad looked great. His line isn't going to show it. If you go look up the game and you go, what are you talking about, Brand? He was 1 for 3. Yes, he was 1 for 3. But his one hit was a homer. His one out was to the wall. That buddy ranged back and got it at the wall. Another one of his outs was a bad play from Cavan, and Bryce threw him out at second, so it goes down as a fielder's choice. So he gets an over on that one. And then his other one was a great walk. So if you watch what Vlad did today, it was fantastic. He looked incredible. He's crushing balls. It's going to sound really stupid, and I'm going to reiterate. I'm going to double down on what I said a couple weeks ago. If I'm placing a futures bet, I'm not too hurt placing it on Vlad Guerrero at plus 2,500 odds right now because he's murdering baseballs, and I think he could have a really good season upcoming. Maybe he's definitely not the favorite for the MVP. I'm not sitting here going Vlad Guerrero is going to win the MVP. But Vlad Guerrero is going to be real interesting in that MVP conversation. And if you're looking to just throw a little bit of money, don't throw your life savings on it. I'm not going to be the one that causes you distress for the rest of your life. If you're looking for a little bit of money to throw down, maybe throw it on Vlad at 2,500 for that MVP award. I'm just saying. Could be fun.
That is a real bold choice to do with your money. If it's your last little bit of money,
don't. Do not throw the last bit of money you have on Vlad Guerrero to win the MVP. I think he's going to be good, but there's a lot of really talented players in the AL, including the best player in baseball. So maybe don't do stupid, but do something. It could be cool. You could win him a little bit of change.
Yeah, he's definitely going to do something in that lineup. It's almost impossible not to with all the options and with all the diversity that they're going to have from plugging in different players here and there, not only game by game, but really pitcher by pitcher, right? Like you have to face 3 batters as a pitcher, but there's, you can change somebody to get a better matchup against that pitcher. Can you not? And they're still there. And then
a little less than you could before, but
right. But
if you have the option to mix and match your pitchers to try and get someone to get Vlad a little different look.
Right.
But he's been doing it in all kinds of ways in spring training so far. Like he has triples, he has homers, he's got the RBI numbers, he's got the average, he's got the walks. He's doing everything right now. And I think a lot of that has to do with the weight he lost and the way he looks right now. Because if you look at Vlad Guerrero as a human being right now, he is different. He's built different than he was last year, for sure. Like, even in his face, like, his face looks more, like, toned and just, like, not this round man doing a great job playing baseball. This is a man on a mission who is just cut different than he was last year. And, like, he's hitting balls hard. He's getting a better launch angle on things. He's faster. He's better defensively. He made a phenomenal play against the Yankees on Tuesday, I believe it was, where he turned a double play on this wicked stab and throw across the diamond. Great. I think he's going to be fantastic this year. If you have money to spend and you want to make a stupid bet, Vlad at plus 2,500 odds for the MVP is fun. Don't spend it. But
I've seen him leg out some good ground balls too. Get close and if not beat them. Yeah, absolutely. And he just probably feels better more comfortable in the majors, right? We talked about it before with the adversity that he faced some, and now he's showing you exactly why he was such a high prospect in this organization, right?
Yeah.
And it helps too when you have guys that are coming into this team and showing you different things at the plate, right? That are able to give you different tips and tricks on how they hit better, you know? And maybe don't listen to everything Springer has to say. He might get you into the dark side. He might trickle you that way. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe don't do the cheating thing. But
we don't know
let
if
him
he's
help with the baseball.
Mastermind behind, you know, if anybody has seen, if anybody's seen some of the greatest movies, a lot of the times it's the guy that's there smiling at you, saying, "Hey, everybody."
It's the guy you least expect that ends up being the.
But George Springer has a really good average for a reason, you know.
Yep, he can hit.
He's able to do some ball player. Marcus Semien is a hardworking player at the plate.
He's been so good too.
Absolutely, and the good thing is about the 1-year deal is that you were going to get the best deal out of him, right?
He's going to play for his money.
Yep. He wants more than that, and he is going to play for that. He thinks that he is MVP caliber.
Yep.
So that's awesome because you could look at this team and you just said grab Vlad and go for MVP, but you could say Marcus Semien could sneak up there. You could say George Springer could go for an MVP run, right? If
Teoscar Hernandez, I think, finished top 5 in MVP voting last year, right?
Right. So you have, four guys.
Multiple candidates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And dude, if by some world that Grichuk just keeps progressing the way that he was, like he statistically had probably his best season last year, right?
If he does that again, that's your bench guy that's going to be putting up fantastic numbers, right?
Awesome.
Nice. Now, the Blue Jays did make all those offseason moves, and those two look great. They're going to be great. The one move that has already not worked out, Kirby Yates is done for the year. We mentioned Kirby last week, and I thought it was his thumb I read. I was way wrong. Guy has some UCL issues, and he's going for Tommy John this season. That sucks. And it's something you'd think you wouldn't be able to predict, but there was an article that came out in The Athletic. I read it, and Kirby Yates had 2 physicals done because he signed 2 separate deals this offseason. Signed one with the Braves. Physical came out, and there were issues there. And there were enough red flags that the Braves said, you know what, we're going to pull out of this one. They offered him $9.5 million. They pulled out and rescinded their offer after finding the results in his physical. Then the Blue Jays went, and they did their own physical, found the same red flags, and they said, you know what? Instead of us giving you 8.5, we're going to give you 5.5. So they went ahead and did that deal. That's one of the bigger whiffs they've had lately, personally.
That was the definition of high risk, high reward, and it did not pay off.
No.
Right?
Now,
like it's
$4.5 million. Sorry, $4.5 million. That is in bonuses. I found out today. So they're only losing a mil total. So not a big deal.
But you're also losing a pitcher that you thought was there, right? We've already said how unsure we are of this rotation and unsure we are of this bullpen. And one thing that you need in this league is a closer.
Yeah.
One thing you need is a guy that's going to come in here, lock it down, and walk away with a 1-2-3. And that's like,
hey man,
and that's how
I have all the faith in the world in my Canadian man, Jordan Romano. I think he's going to do fantastic this year. I'm so pumped for it.
Even listening to him, right, I think that he has a good opportunity. Yeah, he is ready to show you exactly what he's got. But at the same time, this is a team that I feel like is big right now on a little more, veteran leadership in that department, right? Yeah. That's what they're in need of right now, and that's why Kirby Yates was brought in there, was because he's a guy who was there. He's had a really great arm. He's had seasons where he was ridiculous, right? He was
elite in 2019, like best of
just an injury, and that's what sucks is that an injury is holding him back, and the problem is that the injury is to like the only thing that he needs to do.
Yeah,
the only thing that he needs to be good. Yeah. It just keeps breaking.
Yeah. What was I gonna say there? English. Yeah, it sucks. Oh, no, that's what it was. So the thing with me with this whole Kirby Yates deal that nobody's really gonna talk about is they were willing to give him 8.5. Do you know what Taiwan Walker signed for? It was $10 million a season.
So
you were willing to commit 8.5, then down to 5.5. No, you know what? It was 8. It was 8 that Taiwan Walker got, 8 a year, because you were willing to commit 8.5 to Kirby, and then down to 5.5 when you realize he's probably broken, but you weren't willing to commit that $8 million to Taijuan Walker, who you know has been really good for you. That's the one that kind of hurts me. I think this is a big whiff and the first one in a while from the Shapiro and Atkins regime. It kind of sucks.
So to me, maybe this now makes me regret losing out on Hendricks.
I don't regret that one too much. That's a lot for a closer.
It is absolutely a lot of money, but right now, if we go back to last
I would
week,
love to have him.
You said the White Sox were right there and could win it. And why? Because when he comes in the game, you're like, dude, 1, 2, 3, he's got it. So why would the Jays not want that? And then have Liam Hendricks for the next 3 years, and you have Hyun-Jin Ryu for the next 3 years, and you know that this is our window. This is it. If we are going to win in this point, it is going to in these years. Liam Hendricks is going to shut this down.
I love Liam Hendricks. Don't get me wrong.
You spend. There are ways to work around it. You can have prospects. The way of the game right now, Brant, is that these young players on their rookie deals are coming up and dominating the game.
You have a bunch of these guys right now.
So knowing that, you can sacrifice a little bit of that money so that you can get legitimate pitching. You need pitching. And the hardest thing to do is to grab a young 20-year-old some odd pitcher and say, hey, go shut down 3 guys right now.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't feel too bad about not giving out the biggest contract in MLB history to a reliever. I'm kind of okay missing out on that one. I love Liam Hendricks. I think Brad Hand, I feel bad missing out on. Hendricks, I'm kind of like, he's the best reliever there is, but I don't want to give out that much money to a closer who you never know, man. They fall apart so quick. It's ridiculous.
But if you've just given the White Sox the World Series as of last podcast.
I don't know if that's the reason they get the World Series. I think they have a lot of other pieces that help.
One of the additions that they made to help that.
I get it. But I don't think Liam Hendricks to me is the reason they win the World Series. He's just a good piece on that roster that's going to help.
But he is somebody that is better than Jordan Romano as of right now. He is
no shit.
Better than exactly. That's why.
Hey, you know what? He's going to be better than Jordan Romano for about 20 games, and then Jordan Romano's locking it down. Have faith. Markham boy. Markham kid. Throw it down.
I give him the 3 years. Liam Hendricks plays out his 3-year contract, still better than Romano, and then the tide turns. Yeah.
I trust him. I'm all in on Jordan Romano. I love that kid.
I'm
Canadian.
Dude, I love him too. I just think Liam Hendricks is
let's not dwell on the things we missed out on. I know I was dwelling on the Taijuan Walker.
Let's
just enjoy what we got. I was going to say let's enjoy July when Mark Shapiro says they're coming to Canada, but Canada has other plans for us. I don't know if I actually mentioned it on the last podcast, but Shapiro came out and said there's objective scientific data that his team will be less of a threat to the public by July, and as such, he thinks they'll be playing here in July. Not that we could go see them. I don't think that's a big possibility. And I think he's right in the fact that there's objective scientific data that suggests that. The Canadian health officials, however, they do not agree.
They do not.
No, they do not. I don't know if they don't agree, but they kind of just missiled his entire speech, and they're just like, "Look, we get it, but we're not really interested in cross-border travel right now because it's obviously cross-border travel is not allowed for anyone, and we're not looking towards making exceptions for people anytime soon." That doesn't necessarily mean they won't by July. The one thing I didn't like in their whole statement that they put out, they came out and said, I have the whole quote here. I'll just kind of summarize it. Basically, they were saying that the vaccines that we're giving out, Canada believes we're going to have enough vaccines in people by June. Was the latest news that by June we should have most people vaccinated. So by July, in theory, most people should be vaccinated. But their statement says that they're not sure if they know the vaccine's effective against the virus, but they're not sure if it limits the spread. There's not enough scientific evidence to say that it does or doesn't limit the spread. And they're also saying they don't know how long the vaccine's going to last. There are 2 bits of information in there that I'm like, what? I'm like, okay.
we just aren't sure if it's gonna hold in you for.
That's what I mean.
While.
So what you're telling me is I put this thing right here in my arm for nothing because
maybe you might not even make it to the next shot for it to be effective.
Yeah, by the time I hit my second dose, doesn't matter because this thing's out of my system and I'm getting COVID. Interesting piece.
I don't know. They're not sure.
I think that's weird. And then the other one in that was like, oh, we don't know if it limits the spread. But the whole point here is that if most of your country is already vaccinated, who cares if it spreads?
Yeah.
Who cares? Everyone's vaccinated from it, and you're telling me that it's highly effective. So why?
There's a certain percentage, I think, isn't it, that has to be vaccinated too? Yeah.
I would assume. I don't actually know if they have like a plan. And I never know if this fucking government has a plan anymore.
I think we've kind of always said that though, right? Toronto Raptors said we're going to find a way to play here. You know, the Leafs were lucky enough they play in a league big enough.
There's enough Canadian teams.
Yeah. Otherwise, can you imagine they would have had to go to Tampa Bay probably or something? Yeah, they would have to go to one of those teams. One of those places that just doesn't care, right?
I find it a little hypocritical that they're letting these teams, like even the NHL right now, they don't do cross-border. I get that. But they do cross-province, and they have no regulations as to be like, hey, stay at home and don't go out in public and don't do this. Like Joe Thornton, I saw a tweet, this guy ran into Joe Thornton on his walk one day. I'm like, these are players that are just interacting with the public like it's no big deal. And like, we don't care about that as Canada because that's hockey. But in July, we don't want the Blue Jays coming here because those 25 guys that have been testing for COVID every single day, they might carry the virus with them into the hotel that they're staying at the Rogers Center from their private plane. Come on, man. I think it's a joke. I kind of want to talk about it. So I sat at my shift today, and for those of you that don't know, I work for the town, and we have a injection site right now for vaccines. And it's pretty cool. It's an interesting setup. But I'm sitting there today, and I'm like, this really made me question the way we're rolling out this vaccine. Like,
that's what you want to hear from somebody who's looking at it first.
So, like, I get why the 80-plus group went first, because, like, they're the most at risk. I'm like, sure, they are the most at risk. They're also the closest to dying. And watching some of the people walk through that door, I'm like, that vaccine, even if they have a great life ahead of them, that vaccine's lasting 2 years. And I'm like, why is the first step going to them instead of like the 50 to 60s and the 60 to 70s, where they still have to live? And I'm like, I know it sounds brutal and like, yeah, we should care about old people, but like, if you saw what I saw today. There was a woman that literally couldn't sanitize her hands together because she couldn't move her arms together. I'm like, we just put a vaccine in this woman. I'm like, we're struggling to find vaccines. I'm like, that's just, it's rough, man. That's where I question it. I'm like, that's what we're doing? Instead of like solving the issue in this country?
Do you know why you got a shot today?
Because no one showed up for their appointment.
Way too slow to show up for the appointment.
They couldn't make it. They're still walking to the arena right now trying to get their shot. No. Maybe they just didn't make it. Maybe they just, I don't even.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's exactly what you're saying. Is that age group is, I understand that.
I get it. They're the highest at risk. I understand that part.
You can't just say for us to go there, unfortunately.
I don't think you and I should be getting vaccines. No, I'm not on that train.
Okay, but this is why I don't think that the Jays are going to be here in July then, because who's going to the games? You and I can't go.
I don't even care. I don't think we should be opening up so that fans can go to games. I think the Jays should be able to come here and play at their home stadium.
It would be cheaper to keep them down in the States and fly them around there than it is to bring them up here and have everybody cross the border and deal with that. So just keep them down there then. If you have stadiums for them to play at, then you can just keep them down there.
Yeah.
And then it's way cheaper.
I get it.
You can have fans. Just throw them back at Dunedin. Like, just say, hey, Florida, done.
Florida's already at 30% or whatever it is, so they don't even care. I just think it's a little hypocritical of what's going on.
2 weeks. Watch. Once sports get really rolling, they'll just be like, oh, dude, baseball's here? Yeah, we're going back to 100. Fuck it. We don't care.
Texas is already at 100.
Let's go watch.
I'm really looking forward to what's going on in Texas to see what happens there. And whether or not that causes they straight up said they don't think this is a super spreader thing. I'm like, come on, man. If you're telling me that, you've never been to a baseball game.
It's so funny.
Because there's no masks. You don't have to wear a mask in Texas anymore. So you have a full capacity crowd sitting shoulder to shoulder, high-fiving and doing all that shit. Come on.
Bars are like crowded as can be because everybody's just rushing to get to them. I'm sure people are coming from out of state too.
So you and I are closing in on the ages where like it's creepy to go to bars, right? Or like to clubs, we'll say. Let's just limit it to clubs. And I was talking to this with a couple buddies of mine, and like realistically, like
we didn't already hit that.
Well, I don't know. This is what I'm saying. So like the age I would say like where it starts becoming really weird to like go to clubs with the young people and shit is like 28 to 30. I think once you start hitting that, it's like just go to normal bars and just like you're not going out to club and just dance it up with all these fucking 19-year-olds. That's weird. That's really weird. But because we've been out for already a year, and I think you probably hit 2 before bar life gets actually back to normal, is our bar life extended by 2 years?
I don't think that's how it works. I don't think you're just in like purgatory and you're like getting an extra 2 on it. No, because then you're still getting. Here's what's happening right now. Then is you're still getting this flood of people who are now going to be old enough to get into them, and they're going on to experience them. And
you're gonna have 21-year-olds that have never been to a bar.
And then you're adding 2 more years onto that. Mm-hmm. And then saying, yeah, you're good to go. And you're shoving them in there. It's not going to work.
No, but like, it just socially acceptedness. Do you think you and I are like extended by a little bit? Like, is it still creepy if you and I go to clubs?
I think that, yes. The clubs, yes. The bars. The
bars, anyone can go to bars. Anyone can go to bars. I don't give a shit if you're like, hey, man, if you want to go out and drink, go out and drink. All the power to you. I respect it. I'll cheers you up. We'll have drinks together.
My days are over. But then again, though, I have 2 years on you.
That's what I mean.
So like, I'm done. I'm way.
But like, you're closing in on the age group where like you're sitting in the bar as a 19-year-old. Like that guy's kind of creepy, right? Like once you hit like closer, just past your age, it's gonna be now where like. If I'm the 19-year-old looking at that guy, it's like, you know what? That guy spent the last 600 days in his house. He deserves to be here. I feel like that should be the attitude coming in. Not for too long. I don't think it's like...
Are you wanting to go to a club? I honestly, think that my days there are done. I
think I want to go anywhere. I'm so hyped to
have a much better...
That's what we've come to.
Dude.
I never thought I'd see the day where I missed the VI.
I just don't think I can agree with that. That's so
all right.
But we need to have some. Maybe this is actually going to switch into a bit of a counseling session here, folks, because there's something. If you've never been to the VI, you are missing.
Yeah. If you're not from the Bradford or surrounding areas, make a trip up to Bradford and go to the VI for a nice comedy act.
The Village Inn.
It's not a comedy bar.
It is.
It's a comedy.
You will never forget it.
You'll never forget it. It's such an. If you and I bought that bar tomorrow, and just fixed it up until like COVID ended and we can open that bar, it would be the coolest bar because it's such a nice layout and it's huge for where it is. It's just whatever's going on there now and the crowd that it draws. Whew, it's wild.
I always feel like something bad is right around the corner. You know, like no matter where I am there, like when I make a turn, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be
I don't want to look at people. I don't want to look somebody in the eye because they'll take it the wrong way.
I don't want to look. Yeah, and I don't want to look at the floor because then it's like really like what the fuck's on the floor. I don't want to look over here because I'm like, why is that on the wall? Well, that doesn't even
honestly
make sense.
I just go hang out with the bartender at the back bar because usually they're pretty cool back there because they don't get people. So I just go there and I'm like, hey.
Right.
It's fucked. Yep. It's wild.
Yeah, no.
It's just nuts that I missed.
I just think that I've had my share. You know, I'm ready to let that part go. See, what I was actually thinking though is the concert for me. If I go to the concert, like
but you can go to concerts at any age. But Boots and Hearts is a different thing.
Is going to be something is like, you know, like volunteering there. I think there's only a certain age that you really have before it's like, oh, you're that kind of volunteer, you know, you're like you're older volunteer.
Don't you have children? Like that's kind of one of those things.
like it was cool when those moms all went together, the four of them, and that was
They
their
were
like
fun.
thing. You know, we're away from our kids, we're just going there. But like, if you and I are like, yeah, we're 35, we're just here having a good time. Like, no,
You're just hanging out in a tent with a bunch of other tents
kids.
in the fucking field, just throwing down the boot. You know what? You're right. I didn't really think of this. I think we just go to Boots and Hearts till we die. I think we're just those people.
But we would be hopefully in a position to pay for it at that point and just say, yeah, we're going for the day. We like this day better.
Yeah, but that's not fun. I think the fun in it is just hanging out with the kids that are like your children's age, and you're like, hey, you want a beer? I think it's going to be a nightmare. I'm really interested to see what we are in 5 to 10 years.
My goodness.
That'd be fun.
I'm scared. I'm scared but excited.
Back to the White Sox. Big news came out about the Chicago White Sox. Part of the reason why I thought they had a chance to win the World Series was Eloy Jiminez, because I thought he was going to take another big step. He's out 5 to 6 months because he tore a pectoral muscle. First of all, that's got to fucking hurt.
He took a big step backwards for sure.
Mm-hmm. His big step went the wrong way.
Yeah. And dude, I can't imagine what that felt like to just like.
That's like you know, if you do like a chest day and you're like, damn, those are sore.
But was that him like working out, or was that him?
I don't know.
Like, what was he doing to do that? You know,
I'd like to see. I don't actually know. I guess it never really comes out how he did it. Just said he ruptured his left pectoral tendon. Ruptured it, so it blew up. Is what you're telling me. So that's the tendon in here, like this thing. Could you imagine blowing that up?
Yeah, that's 5 to 6 months, and that's gonna put him at a position where everybody's heating up, everybody's locked in, and he's got to come and figure it out.
Oh, here it is. Sorry. So, he was delayed in reporting to AA due to a strain in his left pec suffered while lifting weights. So there's a strong chance that this man was literally just doing bench and the thing just blew up. Oh my.
Yeah, or he was like, doing flies and just. But he would have felt that snap, that tear. Yeah. Oh yeah, you feel that.
And I feel real. 5 to 6 months.
That's a movement, like that. That's really.
That's gonna. He's gonna struggle with that for a little bit. That's tough for the White Sox, obviously, but it's going to.
Depending on what side it is, when you go to any motion catching or throwing, yeah, that's really gonna. And he's a fielder, right? Left field.
Yeah, he's an outfielder. So you're putting a lot into that throw. So you're trying to hum something, and if this tendon is not going well, that's tough. I feel really bad for that guy.
Yeah, that's tough for a young player.
Yeah, baseball's just around the corner, man. I think Tuesday is opening day.
I'm excited for it. I hope that we once again do something for pitching.
Yeah. We probably won't before the season. Hopefully they're good enough that come mid-season they're like, hey, let's go get somebody. But, yeah, it should be fun. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for us to maybe get out of this lockdown so we can at least go places and watch games. We don't have to go to games. I don't care about that. But hopefully people take this shit seriously enough until June that we can just go anywhere. Go to each other's houses, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
I miss that. I just miss sitting around having a beer and watching a Jays game.
Yeah, hanging out on the back deck, just chillax and music on.
Yeah.
Sun's good.
Sit out by the pool. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get there.
The days.
NBA trade deadline passed. Came and passed yesterday.
What a fury that I did not expect, I must say.
No, lots of moves happened. I'm not going to break them down because I don't know enough about basketball to break things down. But there was a cool stat. Did you know every Gary in the NBA got traded yesterday? There's 3 of them. One of them got traded to the Raptors. But, all 3 of them traded yesterday. Thought that was kind of cool.
A random fact.
Yeah, first random fact. I got another one a little later on, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So the biggest news of the day was that the Raptors didn't trade Kyle Lowry, which I think is really cool as a respect move. I don't know if it made a lot of sense franchise-wise, but this is arguably the best Raptor in franchise history, and I don't even know if it's that arguable, personally.
No, and here's my piece about it. First, we all remember losing DeRozan. Yes. And that was the first kind of franchise player that we watched walk out the door. So that hurts, right? You're also Masai, who hasn't signed anything for next year.
Yeah.
You are in a position where you not only are trying to build this team for the future with your realistic departure,
Yeah.
but also make a resume for yourself to go to another team and say, this is what I'm doing and this is what I can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Lowry is there playing the hardest that he can.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we can see around this league is superstars are deciding where they want to go and when they want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
They're not having any loyalty. So if Kyle Lowry is going to come to me and say, dude, I want to retire a Raptor, if we work something out, honestly, it's the Joe Thornton deal to me. How you tell me the price tag and we'll make it work.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry's fair right now. He's not going to come in and say, I'm going to take $35 million because that's what I deserve. If he understands that he needs more around him to win, then he'll say, hey, let's take this price tag for a year and we'll just keep going year by year. And if we need to trade me at the trade deadline,
and I think the respect is there between the two sides that they'll just let him keep coming back if he wants to come back. Like just sign those short-term deals and he comes to you and goes, hey, let's do 25 this year. I think Masai's going to be like 25, here you go. Just for a year or two. Like I think you're right there.
I truly hope so. I think that Masai not having a contract next year and not being with this team next year is also something that Lowry is going to take into consideration, right?
Sure. And
that's going to change the direction of this team.
Yeah.
It'll
be really surprised he hasn't signed anything yet. It's weird.
You are a team with a lot of cap, but I think it's also, let's see the way the world is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Masai's a very big world guy, like world politics he's involved in. We know that, and being in the Toronto market,
he wants to be bigger than the president of the Raptors,
right? And being in the Canadian market is incredibly hard because you are solo. You are by yourself, and you are not as well respected in the NBA. You're not as well.
He has made basketball something special in this country, I would say,
for sure,
which is really cool. But I think he wants to do more than that.
He's done a lot for the game globally, which I think this game didn't think. There was a time when there was U.S. players and then there was maybe some European players, right? But the diversity across the league that you're getting now is ridiculous. And Masai has helped grow that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many superstars can be linked to Masai?
Yeah, Giannis, right?
You're right, right, exactly. Giannis. Siakam's one of them who's linked to him, that he's kind of grown to this superstar of a player, supposedly, right? I'm sorry. I'm not.
No, I get it. Yeah, he gets paid like a superstar.
Yeah. Absolutely, he has superstar money. So Masai needs to also figure out, what does the world look like? Like, if it's kind of like this for another year, why doesn't he come back for another year and say, okay, let's do a little something more.
Let's try it. Let's go back for it. Kawhi's a free agent. Maybe we'll give it.
I'm going to be able to do right, but there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do right now.
Yeah, so I might as well stay
in that regard. Yeah.
I think the coolest thing there was, like, he was not about to get fleeced for Kyle Lowry. There were teams interested, and the three biggest ones were the Sixers, the Heat, and the Lakers. Now, the Heat, they wanted Tyler Hero, and I fully respect that. If Tyler Hero's available, I'm here for that trade if you're adding a couple more pieces. But the Heat wanted nothing to do with that. They were going for Duncan Robinson instead. Now, Duncan Robinson, no slouch. I think he's a good player. He's not Tyler Hero with the upside. I just think there's way more upside with Tyler Hero, and that's a deal you make. They weren't interested. Masai said, yeah, thanks, we're not interested. And then the Sixers were permitted to trade. This came out as a rumor. They were permitted to trade the first-round picks in 2021 and 2023. Tyrese Maxey, who was a young guard they drafted out of Kentucky, and then Matisse Thybulle. And the Raptors decided they wanted all of that. They didn't want just some of that or a combination of that. They wanted all of it. And the Sixers weren't interested, so Masai said, yeah, thanks, we're not interested. And I think that's fair. And then even the Lakers came out and offered KCP and Dennis Schroeder. Like, the two solid NBA players. Like, they're not Kyle Lowry level. I think there might have been picks in there too. Like, it was centered around that, and they still looked at that and said, you know what, that's not enough. So I really respect Masai going, you know what, we think of this guy as a championship caliber point guard. You better pay us like he's a championship caliber point guard, because realistically, who cares if we keep him or we help another team win a championship? We have our championship in the last 2 years. We don't have to help you do shit. If you want him, come get him. Come earn him.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's tough for teams. I get it from the other side of it to justify putting up that much for him, considering he only has a 1-year deal and he's already shown loyalty somewhere else. You know, Philly gets a bit of an advantage because that's where he's from. So obviously you can kind of say like, hey, Philly has a better chance. But that's not saying that Philly has the cap, nor Philly has the plan to bring in a Kyle Lowry and then design everything around the four of them that are there. Right? And what if that doesn't work and then you kind of back yourself into a corner where you have Kyle Lowry, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Tobias Harris, and nobody really wants any of the combination except for Embiid, and you don't want to give up. Like you'll never want to give up Embiid.
No.
And it's like, but you backed yourself into a corner because Lowry's there now. You have so much cap. You're not doing anything, and so I understand it from.
Sure, it makes sense on their parts. But like, man, if you want this championship caliber point guard, you got to pay for him. And
absolutely.
They're not just going to hand you Kyle Lowry because he's a free agent. There's a chance we get him back.
You're not going to go help a team win.
No.
Just because. You know.
So what? He walks away in the offseason. Like, if he wants to walk away in the offseason, he wants to walk away. I don't need to help you win a championship this year. And that was Matsai's thinking, and I respect the hell out of him for that. That was awesome.
You can still stay somewhat competitive in a weird way this year, right? Like unfortunately losing Matt Thomas was something that kind of hurt me. I enjoyed the Matt Thomas signing, not that he ever got the opportunity.
He never really did much. They never gave him a chance.
So for me, if you're going to play players in front of that and get a second-round pick, then okay, by all means, you go do that, right? And the same thing with Terrence Davis. Like, Terrence Davis, good. That guy I didn't think was anything good in the locker room. Exactly.
I'm so hyped to have that guy going.
Bring that
Go bring them down. Thank you.
Yes, by all means. And now you brought in Rodney Hood, who can play, who's been on a few teams, right?
Yep.
And Gary Trent Jr., who's going to be just like a great shooter and a great like D player,
It's well into the system. It's perfect.
That's all you need for, right? That's what they wanted Matt Thomas to be.
That trade was kind of the more significant one in Norm Powell going the other way, because Norm Powell's been here for his whole career and he was a fun player to watch as a Raptors fan. So it kind of sucks to see him anywhere else. Crazy stat on the Gary Trent Jr. thing. So his dad was also an NBA player, Gary Trent Sr. Gary Trent Sr. was traded to the Raptors 41 games into his career in his third season. And then however many years later, Gary Trent Jr. was also traded to the Raptors 41 games into his career in his third season in the NBA. Just the craziest possibility of numbers you'd ever see, but just wild. Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's almost like they planned today. Someone said, wait.
That's what I'm saying. There's no way they didn't look at that. Like, Portland came calling, and they're like, you know what's an interesting thing here? We had his dad. And they looked at it, and they're like, oh, we got to throw that kid in the deal. They had a better offer, and they're like, no, don't worry about it. Just give us Gary Trent.
I don't think the Raptors even, ever did have a better offer, right? Like, that's what we look at. And a lot of people were actually upset with what they got for Norm Powell. But once again, like, Norm is a free agent at the end of the year. Like, losing that, having only 1 year on it is not going to get you much back in return, because that guy could just walk away and leave you with nothing.
He has an opt-out at the end of the year, but it was well known.
He's going to opt out because it is such a low number.
He's making nothing.
Yeah,
and like
for him, he's going to make big money.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he does well. I hope that kid makes back. He's a great guy. And
dude, he's gonna get signed to like a Memphis for some bigger money. Like one of those teams that need a guy like him to, just even like a Minnesota. Like just one of those teams that just might not be a championship team, but he's gonna get paid to be part of that success.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of that culture, because he's seen a championship now. You know, he doesn't need to go championship.
He's got championship player on his resume now. Whether or not he was a big role in it,
and you get paid for that,
remains to be seen. But he'll get paid.
For that.
Yep. I think that's it from sports. Wow. Actually, well, I guess the last thing we have, our little activity here, still kind of sports. We teased it in the last episode, and we said we're going to do some research. We lied.
Everyone's researched in the history. You know what it was? Brand threw all these crazy quotes in the
I
It was crazy.
did a great job putting the notes together because I had nothing to do at work.
Yeah.
So it was cool.
Yeah. And
So there's always like a conversation of the Mount Rushmore of something. And it's basically just like the 4 players that just epitomize the something, whether it's sports or movies or music or something. There's the Mount Rushmore of such and such. So we kind of want to go through the Mount Rushmores of each sport. We were going to do them all at once, but because we didn't do enough research, we're going to do one sport at a time over the course of a few weeks. And today we're going to start with hockey because it's fun. And I think that's a sport we probably know the most about. Maybe baseball in my case, but like combined knowledge of a sport, hockey is our thing. We know a little bit more of what we're talking about than any other sport. So we're going to start with hockey. I think so. There's 4. You need 4 names, and I think realistically we're both going to have the first name in Wayne Gretzky. Like I don't think you can leave him off the Mount Rushmore. Now I don't know what the rest of yours are, but to me,
I'd like to hear yours. And if I agree, then
let's just. I want to kind of hash out our definitions of Mount Rushmore because I don't think Mount Rushmore actually means the 4 best players in the sport. I think it's like the 4 most iconic. So for me, it's not technically. This isn't my top 4 in NHL history, but I have Mario Lemieux in there too because he was like the most dominant force after Gretzky came in when the league was tougher to score and do all that. So I put Lemieux up there. I absolutely despise the man nowadays because of the way he is as a human being, but Bobby Orr is in there because he changed the way defense was played, and like he was like the modern day defenseman, but way back when he played, he just turned into a scumbag, and I've got nothing good to say about him. But he's definitely in my Mount Rushmore. And then I think Gordie Howe because the guy played for 4,000 years, I'm pretty sure. Like I think he might still be in the NHL if you actually look at the Hockey DB. So I think Gordie Howe probably has to be on my Mount Rushmore. Now, that's not my top 4, but that is definitely my Mount Rushmore of hockey.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine varied a little bit after that. I wanted to put Mario and the older players, not for me. I actually kind of looked a little more
research.
Yes, just because it's what I've seen.
Okay.
I took a lot more of what I've watched.
Okay.
I'm going to have to put Mark Messier up there.
Right. That makes sense. I kind of went back and forth on Mess. Like Messer, Bobby Orr is the one I'm ready to take out without hesitation. But it's just tough, right?
No, I think Mess was a pretty, if there was like a Gretzky and, Mess was always kind of hanging around up there, right? With maybe was the forgotten third, but was just as equally, should be out there. And he was never like, oh, you're putting him up there? Like he
won
was
a Stanley Cup without Gretzky. He won a couple without Gretzky, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
He won one in Edmonton with nobody. His supporting players were like you and me. It was not good.
But he just did what he needed to do, Yeah. He's good like that.
Apparently, absolute party animal too. That was a guy that just went hard on and off the ice. It did not matter.
So he would go to the golf course that I worked at. Never saw him the year I was there, but apparently years prior he would go and actually he sent Wayne Gretzky and Paul Coffey there because that's like when they talked about it. It was really cool. They talk in numbers, right? So you hear from 11, and it's like I knew obviously fucking Mark Messier.
Yeah.
I get that. Thank you. And then they just kept saying like, oh yeah, he said this course is beauty. Like it'd be a nice one. Like good day out there. And then we're just like chit chatting, and it was just like, fuck, this is too cool. Just having those moments. But it was just so funny that there's like, he was like, this course. He said to trust him on. Because he's just been there so many times, had such a great time,
The stories that I've kind of briefly heard about that guy off the ice and the people that hung out with that man, that's a guy that they just kind of listen to his opinion because, they enjoy being around that dude.
Yep.
Hell of an off-ice guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I actually did throw a Penguin up in mine, but I threw Sidney Crosby up there.
Yeah.
I think that
I debated it. He was above Messier for me, but...
Really? Yeah, no. He's definitely somebody, if you talk about, changing the game and really one of the most decorated athletes of his time.
The golden goal is one of the coolest moments in hockey history.
Right. Like when they talk about it, right, you still, for me anyways, like I still get the chills of it. Like just
dude,
to hear
every time they show the replay, I'm like shivers. Every time.
Keep yelling his name. Keep yelling Iggy. I could hear that. That could be my ringtone. You know, I'd be totally cool with that.
So cool.
I would love phone calls a lot more.
It was great. That was one of the coolest moments of my like hockey fandom life. Just watching them win it at home at that time with him, like, because Sid's been my favorite player forever, and just like watching him do that, I was just like, this young child was at 11 years ago.
Oh,
I was so pumped. It was so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's a fair one. I like that.
Yep. And then for me, man, Nick Lindstrom. I don't know what it is about him.
Okay.
He, for me, when it came to like the perfect hockey defenseman,
he's it.
Especially as your captain.
Yeah, he's definitely it.
That was the man. And my dad grew up loving that whole, you know, Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov, like, you know, Chris Chelios, and Nick Lindstrom. And
that disgusting ass team that just won all.
And he would never, ever, ever forget Nick Lindstrom, because he would say, like, that's the heart right there. That is why this team does what it does so perfectly, is because he is able to just be that leader and be that perfect defenseman. And, you know, I feel like he goes missed in a lot of the games, right?
He has 7 Norris trophies.
That's what I mean. Like, he has 7 Norris trophies. You don't just joke around like that.
No.
How many championships does he have?
I don't think I have that number in front of me. Just insane, man. That guy, like, literally never missed the playoffs in his entire time in Detroit. They were in the playoffs for every single year that Nick Lindstrom was there.
Yep.
Like, just the consistent, unbelievable talent. He won the Conn Smythe the one year. Like,
and how old did he play? Didn't he play until his 40s?
He played in 2011, 2012. He's 50 now. So he would have been 40 when he played. It's crazy, man.
As a defenseman, when you have guys like you have guys that are coming into this league with some speed.
Get drafted in round 3 too. Just keep that in mind.
So
crazy.
I threw him up there. Somebody,
that's fair.
And I don't know why, just because I love him, was Paul Correa. I kept saying don't do it because, you know, he's really
not. But it feels that way.
They were the 5th. If there was like the camera could zoom out.
Yeah. He's over on the side like, hey, guys.
Yeah. He's like with the Family Guy made a scene of it. They'd shoot the floor and they'd zoom out and there'd be Paul Correa's face.
Oh, that's exactly what I thought of when you said that. I'm like, that's like a Family Guy scene. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
so many people love Paul Correa. It makes sense. I don't disagree with you on that one. Like, he's not on it, but he's great.
No, but he's one of those guys that you're like upset he never won a cup, right? Like, it's the same thing with Steve Nash, like never won a championship, right? You feel for some guys who were there individually, the skill was there, but for some reason, being in the team sport, they never saw the end, right? Yeah. And there's so many guys that do it, for sure, and there's so many guys that experience it, but it's even harder when it's a guy like that.
Yeah.
So
that's wicked. I think that's fun. This is going to be a great month.
That was fun. I'm going
to have to do a lot of research for the back two, because I don't
Yeah.
NFL and NBA, I'm not a historian in either of those two sports, for damn sure.
But I don't think you need to be. Like, the Mount Rushmore is your perspective.
It's my Mount Rushmore, right?
That's where it was like, I've never really gotten into the older hockey. I know all the players, and you've seen the iconic plays, and you watch all the moments and you hear all the stories. But for me, it's also, I'm watching a lot of hockey right now, and a lot of these players changing the way that it is, right?
Yeah.
And
for sure.
Influences
Connor McDavid is changing what the game is due to his speed.
Right. And you hear certain players say, oh, who'd you grow up liking? And it's like, oh, I'm actually playing against guys that I grew up like admiring in the game.
Guys that are playing with Joe Thornton now are just like, oh, I grew up idolizing Joe Thornton because I was 4 when he entered the
Yeah. One of the cool things with soccer, man, like how many people go up to Messi or Ronaldo after a game and like, oh my God, I love you. Like I've literally been
Tom Brady is another one too.
Yeah. I've been watching you since I was like a boy, And it's like, just how many guys are so excited to meet them? Can I have your jersey? Can I have this? Can we just talk for a bit?
A solid 60% of the quarterbacks in the league grew up going, I'm going to be the next Tom Brady. Like, it's one of those things that, like, they're just they're the guy.
Yeah.
It's fun. I think that's it from us. As always, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the BnB pod _. Follow us on TikTok at the BnB podcast. Posted a couple more of that.
That's the one. Good. I think you need to.
I want to shout it out. These shirts, friend of ours, she is selling them right now. She's raising money for, I don't remember the exact cause, but basically, if you follow the news, you know what happened in Atlanta, where that idiot went up and shot up the massage parlor, killed 6 Asians, 8 people total. So basically, she's selling these. I'll link the description in the bio. Yeah, go purchase it. Helps out a really good cause. So that, we're obviously going to link our own merch in the description too. So if you want that, you can click that there. It's all going to be down below us. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We will catch you sometime early next week. Cheers.